Hi and welcome to Chess TV. In this week's episode, we'll give you the continuation of the Nimzo Indian defense in the opening school with Amelia and Alfred. Albert will tell you about the European Team Chess Championship, and I'll challenge you with a new chess puzzle, followed by the chess history, where we continue to revisiting some interesting topics from the very early Chess TV episodes. But first, we'd like to congratulate Sergei Tivyakov, who won the first Panama Chess Open. In less than a month, the world's top 4 players, Kosen, Anand, Aronian and Kramnik, all rated above 2,800, will face off in the London Chess Classics, and we're also looking forward to the Max Öwe tournament that is being played this week in Amsterdam. Visit övetornoi.nl to follow the event live. But now it's time for some opening school with Amelia and Alfred. Here you go. Last week we began analyzing the Nimzo Indian defense, and we'll continue with that in this week's episode. The opening is introduced of the white's first move d4, and in this week's episode we will continue by analyzing some of the different moves white can choose for his fourth move.
As we said in our last episode, white has lots of moves to choose between, and most popular are e3, queen to c2 and knight to f3. But there are of course many other moves for white, like for example queen to b3 in this position.
This move has roots which reaches quite far back in time, and the variation is considered solid, but is rarely played. The reason for its fall out of favor lays within black's answer to this move.
In this position, the bishop on b4 is threatened. There are numerous ways for black to protect the bishop, and the best option being c5. Black can of course capture on c3, but after white recaptures with the queen, white has a nice pawn structure and the bishop here in a fairly open position.
So instead of capturing on c3, black should play c5, protecting the bishop. White takes the pawn, and now black plays knight to c6. White continues to develop and play knight to f3, and black plays knight to e4. Black uses the pinning of the knight to get his own knight into the center, and white has to play bishop to d2 unless he wants to have a weak triple pawns in the c-file.
After bishop to d2, black exchanges on d2 and then takes on c5. The position is equal and both sides have equal chances, but the fact that white has such a passive position has made this a fairly unknown variation.
Let us now take a look at one other possible move for white. As we said, the most common variations occur after e3, queen to c2 and knight to f3, but we will wait until next week's episode before we begin analyzing one of these moves.
Instead, we'll take a look at white's fourth most popular fourth move, namely f3. The idea behind the move is quite clear: to stop the f6 knight from reaching e4, and of course to open up the possibility to play e4 in the future.
It's best here for black to react against white's position, and that is best done by stopping white's advances in the center by playing d5. c5 is also playable as well as castle kingside, but they give white quite nice opportunities.
White has to continue to fight to make e4 possible. Otherwise, f3 would be a useless move, which will only hinder the own knight from developing to its natural square on f3. And so white plays a3. Black can choose between either retreating with the bishop to e7 or to capture on c3, transposing the game into the so-called Samish variation.
After the bishop to e7, e4, an exchange on e4, e5 and d5, we have reached a position where white has the more active position, but also a position riddled with holes and weaknesses. But even though white is considered to have a small advantage.
After bishop takes on c3, white recaptures with the pawn and black plays d5. Black tries to open up the position so that the white king will be as much exposed as possible. White captures on d5 and black takes back with the knight, making the knight active while targeting the white pawns. The pawn on c3, for example, cannot be protected by bishop to d2, because after that, black exchanges pawns on d4 and then plays queen to h4 check, winning the pawn on d4 after g3 and queen takes on d4.
White does of course have better options than bishop to d2, and this position is quite equal. Once again, white has the more space and more central pawns, but also many weaknesses. But with this, we will end this week's episode of The Opening School. We'll be back again next week, so see you then.
We all know Greece has had a bit of a rough patch lately. It's because of the economy, and I've heard it's not so great right now. So there were a couple of questions when I first found out that the European Team Chess Championship was going to be played at the Portokaras Grand Resort in Greece. I originally pictured it like some sort of a post-apocalyptic disaster, you know, dark, dirty, with wind ripping around the ruins of burnt-down houses and cars, and zombies walking around. And maybe it was just me and my overactive imagination. It seems the players were treated to quite the surprise when they arrived. I mean, all we hear in the news is that Greece is bankrupt and how our Swedish tax money is going to Greece so that they can restore their public finances and, like, feed the people. But the European Team Chess Championship painted quite a different picture. It was in fact held at a luxury resort with a beautiful ocean right next to it. The shock of the contrast between what was expected and how it actually looked is probably why the Swedish team didn't win this year either. Actually, Iceland even did better than Sweden. But maybe that was just because Iceland bankrupted over a year ago and they must have sort of felt at home. We all know playing on home ground is an advantage. No, but seriously, it was actually a really nice event, far surpassing any expectation I think anyone could have had. The open section was won by Germany, a huge accomplishment considering that they were ranked 10th. Making Germany the new European champions. The silver was clinched by Azerbaijan, followed by Hungary, a team that really pulled it together in the last round, and beat out Bulgaria with 4-0. Congratulations! In the women's section, Russia claimed their third consecutive title of the European Women Team Champion. The silver was won by Poland and Georgia won bronze. Huge congratulations to the teams, the players and the organizers. I dare say that the championship was even as well organized as back in 2005, when we had it here in Sweden.
In this week's chess puzzle, we're going to look at a position that Bobby Fischer played in 1957 in San Francisco against Jay Bennett. Fischer played white and won, so your task is therefore to find white's best move. You have 1 minute to solve this challenge. Good luck! Although the position is even in material terms, you can't help but feel some fear when it comes to the black rook on b2 and the bishop on c3. To have a rook on the second rank so close to the king is always uncomfortable, and the risk of being checkmated increases dramatically. The black queen on c8 is also ready to join the game by, for instance, playing a check on c5. But let's not jump to conclusions without noticing our advantages too. We have an extremely strong position with the bishop on b3 and his diagonal against g8, which cuts black off quite substantially. If the black queen wouldn't be guarding the bishop, we could capture it with a checkmate. And that is where we have our plan. And now the question is how we achieve it. We must get rid of the black queen so that she doesn't guard the bishop anymore, and there is only one way to do so, and that is to play rook to d8 check. Black has really two options here, to either take the rook or to walk away with the king. If it chooses to go to g7 with the king, we win the queen and the checkmate could be performed pretty quickly thereafter. But if the queen now takes the checking rook, we play queen captures the bishop with a check. It is not yet checkmate due to the black's move queen to f6, but on that we capture the queen with a final checkmate. So remember that this game was played 54 years ago and is still just as up to date as it was back in the years. 54 years is a long time, however, in relation to what Arne Johansson presents in this week's episode of the Chess History, 54 years don't seem that long after all.
Last week we showed a recap of the first chess history section with on-site filming of an amazing chess set made in Augsburg in the early 1700s. The original story was broadcast in May 2005, but 2 months before that I reported on the very first site visit, which I did without any filming, but where we were able to show some still pictures of beautiful chess sets that I looked up in a bank vault in Gothenburg. There's a clear link between this story and our quest to search for 17th and 18th century chess sets here in Sweden. The pictures were taken in March 2004 during a Gothenburg visit, where I had the chance to take a look at this collection, which belongs to the Gothenburg Chess Federation and which was donated by Erik Olsson in 1936. We should perhaps start by giving a short presentation of the donor. Erik Olsson was born in Gothenburg in 1886. He studied at the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm and there became friends with Ludwig Collin, with whom he collaborated over a long period. Already in 1909, when he was 23 years old, he became engaged in the organization of the Nordic Chess Congress, which was held in Gothenburg that year. We can see him here at the left of the chessboard. Erik Olsson was also a leading organizer in Swedish chess life during the 1930s and 40s, but was involved already in the foundation of the Swedish Chess Federation in 1917. He was later vice chairman during a long period, during which he collaborated closely with Ludwig Collin, and took over as chairman when Collin died. Olsson's period as chairman lasted from 1940 until 1947. And during most of this period, he was also chairman of the Nordic Chess Federation. This photo is from 1938. He also took a leading role in the Gothenburg Chess Federation during a long period. In parallel with his chess activities, he also had a civil career with positions such as CEO of the Pripps Brewing Company. He died in 1966 and a memorial tournament was held in Gothenburg the following year. When I took a look at the Olsson's chess collection, it had been stowed away in a bank vault and essentially forgotten for many years. The collection was contained in 4 big boxes and mainly consisted of chess sets of different age, material and style. But there were also some old chess trophies. Among them was this trophy from the Swedish Chess Federation for the matches between Stockholm, Gothenburg and Skåne. There were also a beer mug that one can recognize as a trophy donated by King Oscar II for the 1901 Nordic Chess Championship. Now we can also find this trophy in a central place in the picture from this tournament. There is only one book in the collection, but on the other hand, it's a nice copy of the Italian translation from 1584 of Ruy Lopez's book. In this picture we can see a table with chessboard and pieces, but it is a very small table, which is clear from the picture when we see it together with a walnut containing an extra set of pieces for the table. The oldest chess set in the collection are, according to the available notes, probably from the early part of the 18th century. We will here start by looking at the earliest chess sets, of which the very first is made in Indonesia in the 18th century. It is delicately carved in ivory. The more recent sets follow, and among these it is one that has a special symbolic value is the chess set with Bavarian beer mugs, considering that Erik Olsson's later career was as CEO in the Pripps Brewing Company. So enjoy these pictures from the very first chess history on-site visit in this program.
Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week again. See you then. Bye.